We're good now. Okay, now the official good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see everybody.
Good morning.
Oh, I thought somebody snickered.
No, I
Oh, okay. Okay, so we are moving on. Last week, we began the Grecian Empire. We started talking about the Greeks.
Now the official good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you.
Sorry.
That's okay. We started talking about the Greeks and Alexander the Great, who came in and conquered the world basically in a very brief time. What I failed to mention, and I should have last week, but I didn't, I just forgot, is where, because we introduced this word Hellenism, and I'm sure you've heard of it before. Hellenism, Hellenistic, the Hellenists over in Acts. We talked about them, the Hellenists. Okay. Well, it comes from this word Hellen. It means a Greek, and so Hellenism comes from this Greek word Hellenismos, which means imitation of the Greeks. Okay. They're also known as the Hellenes. And then, of course, Helen was a mythical goddess, right? She was the progenitor, supposedly, of all the Greeks. So that's why we have this big word, Hellenism or Hellenists. They were imitating the Greek way of life is what they were doing. You may have heard of the other Greek goddess, Helen of Troy. That's not her. Not named after her. Yeah. I had to double check on that because I've heard of Helen of Troy, and I just didn't know if that's where this word came from. But it's not. It's from Helen, the Greek goddess who supposedly was the mother of all the Greeks. So, Hellenism, that's what it is. Okay, so that's what Alexander the Great did. He spread Hellenistic culture across the entire world. That was his mission. That was his goal. Not only to subdue the Persians, that's what his dad told him to do, and to solidify Greece, but his personal mission was to spread Hellenistic culture across the world. That was his goal, and it was a big one, and he did it. And it was significant. Look who's coming. Hey, she made it! Yay! All right, everybody.
Oh, yay!
There's a
We
chair.
need another chair.
So he did that, and he lived a very brief life, Alexander the Great. But Hellenism very much outlived him, and you open up to the New Testament, and you see Hellenism there, Hellenists everywhere. Okay, would you like to sit at the table? That'd be easiest, because there's
I
room.
can scoot down.
Yeah.
You want to come over
Hop
here?
down there. Let me carry your kitten. I'll do it. You're good. We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
sit forward.
Front and center.
And I can scoot on
There you go.
around.
Yeah. All right. Well, next we can put another table in here. Just in case we have this.
I won't be here next week, that'll help a little.
Oh, okay. We won't put a new table in here. That's a good problem to have. Good. Okay. So Hellenism very much outlived Alexander the Great, but when Alexander died, because he lived just a very brief time, it left his kingdom in chaos. He didn't live long enough to solidify his kingdom, remember? And so he had an heir who was going to be born just shortly after he died. That was an infant. And so we already went through the whole that. It just created chaos, right? And we talked about the Diadoche, or however you want to say it, the Diadoche Wars, the successors, the wars of the successors that went on and on and on and on until finally 3 rose to the top. We talked about the Ptolemies down in Egypt, pretty much, in very southern Syria, who maintained that realm of the world. And we talked about the Seleucids, who also maintained the realm over near Babylon and Persia, and then Syria. Now, Syria, I think some of us might, I don't know if everybody found that place on the map. Did everybody find that place? It's a very important place. It's just, if you have the map in your mind and you know where Israel is, Palestine, where Jerusalem is, all of that, if you just go straight up north, that's going to be Syria. Syria, and then over to the east a little bit, that way. That's where it is. But anyway, that's what the Seleucids had. Syria, and then all the way down into Babylon and Persia. They had that territory. And then there was the Antagonid dynasty, and that was over in Greece and Asia Minor in the west. Okay, so any questions about that? That's really pretty much what we talked about last week. Today we're going to continue the Grecian Empire. This is part 2. Believe it or not, there is going to be a part 3 because there's so much happening here with God's people. Not only is there so much happening in world history, but there is so much happening that affected God's people during this time, and I really hate to skip it because that's the point of this class, is to study the intertestamental period, and there's a bunch of stuff that happened, so I don't want to skip it. So there's going to be a part 3. So this is the Grecian Empire part 2. What I titled this, what Clint titled it for the live stream, is the Greek Empire, the Seleucids and the Ptolemies, because that's who we're going to talk about today. I created this chart. The idea of the chart I found online, and I found it helpful, but there were some errors in it, and it was written in a different language. So I created my own so that I could have all the information correct as far as I've studied it, and it'd be in English. And then I added the Daniel part 11, because Daniel, Seleucids, and one that's at the top there, after their first view last week, talked a lot about him to keep things straight, and so that's why I decided to go ahead and try to make a chart. Okay, so we're going to go through this chart as a visual as we go through Daniel 11. So we really are going to pretty much go almost verse by verse through Daniel 11. If you write in your Bible, this is a great time to write in your Bible all of these notes. Because if you did the homework and you read chapters 10, 11, and 12, they're a little enigmatic. Talking about the king of the north, king of the south, doing this, doing that.
Who are they talking about?
Yeah, who is this? Who is that? Who's this?
Who
So
is the north,
hopefully
the
today
south?
this will clarify a lot of that as we go through Daniel chapter 11. Okay, any questions so far before I get started here? Okay, but beginning in chapter 10, chapters 10, 11, and 12 are the last chapters of Daniel chronologically, and of course they're the last chapters of his book. But you know, Daniel's chapters are not laid out in chronological order, but chapters 10, 11, 12 are the last ones. And so the reason we know that is because of chapter 10, verse 1, where it says, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia. So Cyrus now is king of Persia. Daniel, Cyrus is already decreed in late future time. They're not having. So he is, of course, that's over in Babylon. And he sees this person, verse 5, a certain man clothed, and he's described much like Jesus himself is described by John in the book of Revelation, which leads me to think that he's probably seen Christ pre-incarnate here. He's seeing divinity, the divine here, not just an angelic creature or, you know, an archangel or anything like that, but actually seeing the Lord here. But anyway, and he, it was too much for him, and he lost all his strength. That's what verse 8 says. The people that were with him, they ran away because they were scared. And in verse 8, he said, no strength remained in me, for my vigor was turned to frailty in me, and I retained no strength. Yet I heard the sound of his words, and while I heard those words, and then speaks these words, man, I think is not the, but over here I think now we're talking about an angelic. Other, your prayers have been heard. But he says in verse 13, the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. And behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been let a glimpse into the spiritual. You have a lot of questions, right? And we learn there's going on there, like there's rule and kings, if that makes sense. Contending with the kingdom of Persia for 21 days. And he was held up by that before he could actually come to Daniel, which is bizarre to think about. And like I said, it brings up a lot of questions. But anyway, that's really what we're seeing here. And so, but then he finally gets to this point, verse 14. Now I have come to make you understand what will happen to your people in the latter days. For this vision refers to many days yet to come. Okay, so we know this is very future. Let's see, let's go ahead and skip basically to chapter 11, verse 2. That's where kind of this creature begins telling Daniel of the future. And he had 3 more kings, all of them, and by his strength, historically we know this was Xerxes' control of the Greek city-states. He was not named here, but we know that from him. But before he's able to do that, great dominion and do according to his will. This here now is the Grecian Empire coming in with Alexander the Great. So this mighty king that arises is Alexander the Great. And then verse 4 explains, when Alexander the Great has arisen, his kingdom will be broken up and divided toward the 4 winds of the heaven. We, in our Daniel chart, we saw where that horn, the great horn, the bigger horn that, the bigger horn, split into 4. And we talked about how, and that's what we talked about last week, is those 4 kingdoms and just how his kingdom split because there wasn't one ruler to rule all of them. Anyway, okay, so that's just what verse 4 is talking about. We haven't, it's not anything new here. Verse 4, let's see. His kingdom, 4 parts of which he ruled. In other words, they're not going to have the same, but his kingdom is going to be scattered. Chart. If you'll notice this chart, of the south, when he talks about, okay, let's just read verse 5. Also, the king of the south, that would be Ptolemy I, shall become strong, as well as one of his princes. This is talking about Seleucids I, the first. And the reason we know this is because if you remember,
That's the prince?
Yes.
Okay.
Seleucus the first was a general of Ptolemy. I don't know if you remember that from last week, but was served as a general for him till he broke off and then became his own ruler, right? And that's why the rest of verse 5 says, and he shall gain power over him. So Seleucus the first is going to gain power over Ptolemy the first and have dominion, and his dominion shall be a great dominion. So already we know who's going to outlive the other as far as who's going to have the greater kingdom here between the Seleucids and the Ptolemies. Between Seleucus the first and Ptolemy the first, it's going to be the Seleucids. And so that's Daniel 11:5. God's setting the stage here to tell us how this dynamic is going to begin and where it's going to end. That's what we're going to talk about. Okay, any questions so far?
This is wonderful.
Okay, good.
Because the whole time I was reading this, I was like, well, who
I know,
are they talking
I
about?
know,
Who?
right?
Well, good. At least, even if you didn't know for the specifics, at least you're
Yeah.
familiar with the text.
Yeah.
And it's not foreign now to
Yeah.
you. That helps for today's class, yes.
So if Ptolemy was the prince of the south, then Seleucus, who broke off, did he take one of the directions?
He's now going to be referenced as the king of the north.
Thank you.
Yes. North because it involves Syria, and Syria was to the north of Egypt, Palestine, and was up in there. So he was the king of the north. And that's exactly what verse 6 says. So let's read verse 6 and then we'll talk about it. Verse 6 says, and at the end of some years they shall join forces. For the daughter of the king of the south, Egypt, shall go to the king of the north, Syria, to make an agreement. But she shall not retain the power of her authority, and neither he nor his authority shall stand, but she shall be given up with those who brought her, and with him who begot her, and with him who strengthened her in those times. Okay. So, yeah, that's a little enigmatic. But anyway, so let's break it down. Okay, basically we have a transfer of power happening here. Ptolemy I died in 282, that you see on the chart, and transferred his throne to his son Ptolemy II, known as Ptolemy II Philadelphus. If you'll remind me at the end, and if I think of it, I can tell you what all of these little additional names mean. Some of them are kind of funny. But anyway, okay, so his throne then was held by his son Ptolemy II. Now, about the same time, Seleucids I was murdered by a Ptolemy. Not any on this chart, but by a Ptolemy. Okay, he was traveling and he was murdered while he was traveling. And so then his son, Antiochus I, began to rule. So now now we're not talking about Seleucus I and Ptolemy I. We're talking about Antiochus I and Ptolemy II, right? And they fought a lot. There were a lot of wars that happened with the Ptolemies and the Seleucids. And so they fought, because everybody wants territory, right? So they fought and fought. But eventually, during this time with those two, the Ptolemies came out on top. Okay, now, Antiochus I was killed in 261. You can see that there. Now, Ptolemy II lives on for about 25 more years after Antiochus I is dead. And so then he begins to deal with Antiochus II, which is Antiochus I's son. All right, so Antiochus II takes the throne and plans to avenge his father's death. And I can't remember now how he died. But anyway, Antiochus II is gonna, avenge his father. Okay, so there's the transfer of power, but now there's going to be some joint forces. Some forces joined together, and that's what verse 6 talks about. At the end of some years, they shall join forces. They meaning the north and the south. The south, Egypt, the north, Syria. They're going to join forces in a way, but it's not going to work out. That's basically what verse 6 is saying. So part of a peace treaty that, in order to end the wars between Antiochus II and Ptolemy II, part of this, they came to an agreement to make a peace treaty. And in that peace treaty, part of the agreement was that Antiochus II was going to marry Ptolemy II's daughter, Bernice. You see her there? Mm-hmm. Okay. Ptolemy wanted to do this. This was his idea, I'm sure. I know it was. Wanted to do this so that her heir, her son, would inherit the throne over here, because part of the agreement was, okay, I'm going to give you my daughter. Okay, let me back up. Antiochus II was already married.
Yeah, it looks like it, huh?
Yeah, he was married to this Laodice woman and had children, okay? But for some reason, well, I mean, I know why, but anyway, Ptolemy, for some reason, he thinks this is going to work out, but it doesn't. I don't know why he didn't think ahead, but anyway, he thought better of the Seleucids than they really were. So Ptolemy says, okay, part of this peace treaty is, I'm going to give you my daughter, Bernice, and you're going to marry her so that her son, and then when her son is born and you die, he gets set on the throne. And so now the Ptolemies have an inlet into the Seleucid territory, right? Dynasty or whatever. And so that's, Ptolemy, agreed to this and I guess thought it was going to work out. But it didn't. Surprise. Antiochus II died in 246, the same year that Ptolemy II died. So Laodice, she then of course had, but she brought to nothing. That's basically Daniel 11 verse 6. Good?
It's a lot for one verse.
Isn't it?
Wow.
I know. I
I
know.
want to hear that one again.
Okay, now there's more. Now let's read verse 7. I gotta make sure I'm here in my notes. I gotta make sure. I don't want to get ahead of myself or miss something. Yeah, good. Okay, Daniel 11, verse 7. but from a branch of her roots, silver and gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. Okay, so Ptolemy the third now is going to avenge his sister's death, right? And he goes and attacks Seleucus II in the north. According to history, this is known as the Laodicean War. Big battle. And it occurred from 246 to 242 BC. The Laodicean, named after the wife, Laodice. The Laodicean Wars because she killed Bernice and her son and didn't keep the peace treaty. So
What were those dates?
I'm sorry?
246?
Yes. 242.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So Ptolemy III goes to Syria to avenge Bernice's death, and he hits fast and furious and makes sweeping victories. But none of it lasts. He has to return to Egypt. He's got conflict down there, so he's got to go back home. But here is where the empire of the Ptolemies hit its peak, pretty much. They were on top of, if they could have held on, they could have come out on top, but they weren't able to hold on. The Seleucids weren't giving up that easy. But anyway, so the Ptolemies hit their peak here, but the Seleucids are still able to maintain the majority of their empire, the core of their empire. So it doesn't really change anything historically necessarily, but it does fulfill what God tells Daniel in Daniel 11. All right? Any questions about that? So verses 7 and 8 are really referencing the Laodicean War, is what they're talking about. When Ptolemy III goes to the north and attacks in order to avenge his sister's death. All right? Now verse 10. However, his sons shall stir up strife and assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overwhelm and pass through. Then he shall return to his fortress and stir up strife. All right, so there's some more unknowns. So let's lay it out here. So you see on the chart there is a Daniel 11:10 between two sons. Between the two sons of Seleucus II. You see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is who Daniel 10 is talking about. When Daniel 11 verse 10 says, however, his sons, that's referencing Seleucus II. That's the his there, H-I-S. That's Seleucus II. He's going to have two sons. And if you'll see on your chart, the two sons are named Seleucus III, Alexander Seleucus III, and then Antiochus III, the Great. Right? Do you see those? Mm-hmm. Okay. So those are the two sons, but look at their dates. Seleucus III doesn't reign for very long, does he? A couple of years. But Antiochus III, he reigns for a while. And so that's why in verse 10 where it says, however, his sons will stir up strife. So they're going to come back and attack. And they're going to assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overwhelm and pass through. So it's going to be one of those sons, not both of them. And the one of those sons that's going to come in and overthrow and be victorious is going to be Antiochus III. Because Seleucus III, he's going to be dead. Okay? Let's see here. Oh, I forgot. Seleucus III was assassinated. That's how he died. And I don't remember who assassinated him. Doesn't matter.
So
but he was assassinated.
He overthrows.
No, I don't know who. I don't remember who assassinated Seleucus III.
No, I'm saying.
Yes, go ahead.
When you said, I got a little bit confused.
Okay.
And one shall certainly come and overwhelm and pass through, meaning overwhelm the other one.
Overwhelm and pass through the enemies, Egypt. The south.
Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily the son, the brother.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. talking about, what he's
Okay.
gonna do to the king of the south.
Gotcha. That's what I thought, but then I was thinking, did it mean his brother? Okay.
Right, okay.
And then he was assassinated.
Mm-hmm,
Gotcha.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm good.
And it says there at the last, now Seleucus III was assassinated.
Yes.
Okay. And it says there at the last of verse 10, then he shall return to his fortress and stir up strife. This returning to his fortress is not talking about the Seleucids fortress. Historically, if this is how you're going to interpret Daniel 11 verse 10, and I think it seems pretty accurate and seems to fit. So this is how I'm going to interpret it, and this is what I'm going to teach. Okay. So he, meaning the king of the Seleucids, Antiochus III, he's going to come in and return to his fortress, not his, but Ptolemies'
Oh,
fortress.
okay.
Ptolemy the Fourth's fortress. That's who he's dealing with now. And stir up strife there. So,
Which verse was that?
this is the end of verse 10. There's a lot of pronouns, right?
Yeah.
His. And so it's hard to
Yeah,
keep them
that's-
straight. And so I'm just, if you're confused, let me go through it one more time. If not, we can move on. I don't know how you want to do
I'm
it.
good now.
You're good now?
but
Okay.
I don't know if everybody else is.
So basically, the last of verse 10 says, he, meaning Antiochus III, is going to return to his, meaning Ptolemy the Fourth's, that's who's in power now, a fortress, and stir up strife. Now, this fortress, from what I can tell and from what I've learned and what I'm going to teach, was a fortress at a place called Raphia, Raphia, and it was in Palestine, and it was the Ptolemies' fortress. It belonged to Egypt. It was their fortress, and this battle, a great big battle, took place in 217, and I think that's what verse 10 is talking about here. Daniel 11 verse 10 is talking about this battle at Raphia in 217. This was, according to historians, one of the largest battles in ancient history. It was huge. And I like to call it the Battle of the Elephants because they used, I was reading about it, and they used,
How do you
both
spell
sides
raffia?
used elephants.
Wow.
Have you ever seen Lord of the Rings?
Raphia.
Okay, and that's what
Thank
it
you.
reminds me of, is those huge, like, elephants, right? And they've got these big old long tusks, and, you know, they're people on top, and they're, yeah.
I'm sorry.
217 BC.
Well, Alexander the Great brought the elephants from Asia, you know, when he crossed over the
Oh,
mountains.
did he?
Yeah.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
that sounds good.
So that's why there's probably
Yeah.
elephants all over.
Well, so I call it the Battle of the Elephants because
Cool.
Ptolemy had his elephants, but they were African elephants.
Elephants.
They were African elephants because he was living he was ruling the
Mhm.
continent of Africa,
Right.
and so Africa has elephants. I've
Mhm.
seen them over there,
Uh-huh.
and they're, you know, big. I'm sure back then they might have been a little bit bigger than what
Mhm.
we're used to seeing now. But anyway, so he had African elephants, but Antiochus III, he had Indian elephants.
They're
From
smaller, aren't they?
India. Apparently not,
Are they
because
bigger
according to
ones?
history, those elephants were stronger than the African elephants. Anyway,
Some are gray, some are brown. This is today, but I learned a bunch about elephants recently and forgotten all about it. But yeah, it's really fascinating to know
yeah,
about how strong they are.
we usually
They seem
think
so
of-
gentle to us.
I know.
And they're,
yeah,
Well, the
and to
Asian,
be trained
yeah.
and
for battle. We
Asian,
usually
smart.
think of horses
Yeah, they're so smart.
used in battle as animals, right?
Uh-huh.
But yeah,
well,
That's
even
pretty
now, they use the Asian elephants in the jungle to pick up all their logs and things they're working out.
Yeah,
Elephants.
yeah,
crazy.
they're great workers.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so apparently they were trained even for war.
Mhm.
But during this battle at Raphia, the Indian elephants proved stronger than the African elephants, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for Syria to win this battle. Ptolemy's army prevailed and retained his territory, defeated the Seleucids, and the Seleucids retreated back to theirs. So this was a huge battle in 217. And the result was that Ptolemy was able to maintain his territory while the Seleucids had to retreat back to theirs. This is verse 11. And the king of the south, this is Ptolemy the fourth, will be moved with rage and go out and fight with him, the king of the north, who shall muster a great multitude. But the multitude shall be given into the hand of his enemy. In other words, the north's going to lose. That's verse 11. And then verse 12. When he has taken away the multitude, his heart, meaning Ptolemy's heart, is going to be lifted up. He's going to become super prideful. Super, super prideful. And you know what happens when you become super prideful. You will fall. And he will cast down tens of thousands, but he will not prevail. In other words, he's not going to prevail in the long run for very long because his pride gets to him. So Ptolemy's victory was really great, but it also induced great pride in him, and that would be to his detriment. Though he achieved a great victory at Raphia, it would not prevail ultimately. Okay, so that's basically verses 10, 11, and 12. The battle at Raphia with Ptolemy the fourth and Alexander Seleucids the third. Okay? So you can see here, the big picture is these people are fighting all the time. And pretty soon, and they're all battling basically right there in Israel's territory. So God's people are just stuck there. And sometimes they're being ruled by the north. Sometimes they're being ruled by the south. It goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And you can imagine. So that's the significance of this. That's why we're studying it. And it was important enough for God to reveal to Daniel and for it to be recorded. And so I think it's important enough for us to go through and learn so that we can know what happened historically. Okay, moving on. Now, we're going to look at verses 13 through 16. On the chart, that would be underneath Daniel 11, verses 13 through 16 is in red, underneath Ptolemy the fifth. Ptolemy the fifth Epiphanes. He was the son of Ptolemy the fourth. But he inherited his father's throne when he was like 5 or 6. Very, very young. And if I remember what I read correctly, if I remember this correctly from what I read, he inherited his father's throne. His father died early, and he was only 5 or 6. But he was kept hidden. Like, his father's death was kept a secret for as long as they could keep it a secret until this son grew old enough to actually rule, to come to the throne and rule, and he eventually did it about like 13 years
So who
old.
actually was ruling?
Well, it just kind of was, I don't know.
They were faking it until they make it.
Yeah, kind of like that, yeah. And there may be some more history there that I didn't have time to go dig into all of it. Okay. But that's how Ptolemy the fifth came up. And so when we read here now, what we're going to read in Daniel 11, verses 13 through 16, I think that's what I have here. We're going to read how Antiochus III now is dealing with Ptolemy the fifth. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So let's just read it so we get the text underneath our belt here. So beginning in verse 13. The king of the north is going to return. This is Antiochus III. He's going to come back. He's not happy with losing, right? He's not happy with having to have retreated back and losing to Ptolemy and losing his elephants. That kind of thing. Okay, so he is going to return and muster a multitude greater than the first time, and shall certainly come at the end of some years with a great army and much equipment. So he's going to come now and attack Ptolemy the fifth. Okay, that battle at Raphia was against Ptolemy the fourth, but now he's going to come back during Ptolemy the fifth's reign and attack again. Verse 14 says, now in those times many will rise up against the king of the south. Many are going to join forces and rise up against Ptolemy the fifth. Also, okay, this is where my version says, also violent men. What does yours say?
Violent.
Violent, okay.
Among your people.
Violent men of your people.
Own people.
Yeah, read who has a different version than the New King James? Somebody read that. You have an ESV or,
That's what it says,
Yeah.
violent among your people.
go ahead and read the rest of verse 14.
Okay, in those times many shall rise against the king of the south, and the violent among your own people shall lift themselves up in order to fulfill the vision, but they shall fail.
Okay, very good. Okay, it's about the same. Mine just is a little wordy and it kind of doesn't make sense, but it's saying the same thing. Mine says also, violent men of your people will exalt themselves in fulfillment of the vision, but they shall fall. So verse 14 is basically saying, many people are going to come and rise up against Egypt. Even your own people, Daniel. So this is talking about God's people. They're going to rise up with the north. They're going to take the north side during this time and rise up against Egypt. But they're going to fail. That's what it says right here. It's going to fulfill the vision, and they shall fall. All right. And then the king of the north, verse 15, the king of the north, this is Antiochus III still, will come and build a siege mound, okay, and take a fortified city, okay, and the forces of the south, meaning Egypt, Ptolemy V, will not be able to withstand him. Even his best troops will have no strength to resist Antiochus III. Does that make sense so far?
No.
Okay. No, who said no?
No.
Okay, we'll break it down again. Let's see, how far do I want to go here? Verse 16. But he who comes against him shall do according to his own will, and no one shall stand against him. He shall stand in the glorious land with destruction in his power. Okay, before we get to that, we don't want anybody to be in the dark as much as possible.
I'm sorry, it's just a lot.
That's okay. It is a lot. I know it's a lot. It is a lot.
If they'd have just put names, it would have been so much easier. You know,
You're going to have to take that up
Joe
with the
rose
Lord.
up against James, you know, it would have been
Yes.
so easy.
Yep.
But there were so many Antagonists and ones and twos and threes. And
Yes.
And then
Yes,
this one of the
it
north and that one of the
The
south.
south.
Then, like, Egypt doesn't seem south to me. It seems,
No,
I
it's
don't
very
know.
much
Anyways,
south.
I know, but it's west.
No, it's
like
south.
hard for me to picture all this in my head.
Okay. So I think that we're good so far with 11. The king of the south is going to be moved. We already talked about that. King of the south is going to be moved with rage. And go out and fight. He's going to win. That was Raphael. Verse 12. He's pride is verse 13. That's where we are. The king of the north. This is still Antiochus III. He doesn't like that he was defeated at Raphael. Okay, so he's going to come back with even more troops. That's what verse 13 says. With a great army and much equipment. So maybe even more elephants on this time around. And he's going to come up against Ptolemy V now. Because the battle at Raphael was against Ptolemy IV, his father. Okay, so verse 13, he's going to come up now against Ptolemy V. And then verse 14, all that means is that many are going to join him. That's going to be part of his multitude, not just the Seleucids and the Syrians, but others too, even God's own people, Israelites, Jews, are going to join the north in attacking the south. That's all verse 14 says. And that they're not going to be successful. They're going to fall. That's what it says here. Okay, now verse 15. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything here on my notes. Yes, verse 15. So the king of the north, who is that?
Egypt.
No,
No.
the king of the north,
Is, yeah.
And whatever his name is.
Antiochus
Is
the
third.
third. Very good. Also known as Syria, because that's where primarily he was operating from. Remember, the battleground was Palestine. That's between Syria and Egypt. It's right there on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, that was the battleground. Everybody wanted that territory, and God's people were stuck in the middle. Okay, so the king of the north, Antiochus III, will come and build, what does yours say? Mine says a siege mound.
Siege mound.
Mine said
Siege works.
siege work.
Siege works. Okay. And take a fortified city. Mine says fortified city. Fortified city. Okay. And the forces of the south will not be able to withstand him. Even with the best troops of the south, even with Ptolemy V's best troops, they're not going to win this time. They won last time, but they're not going to win this time at this fortified city. Historically, apparently it's overwhelmingly, the consensus is that this city is a reference to Sidon, the city of Sidon. You've heard of the phrase Tyre and Sidon? Sidon. Okay, it's very much in the north. If you have a map in the back of your Bible, you'll see it there. But it's on the coast as you go up the Mediterranean Sea. You have Jerusalem. You keep going north, Samaria, Damascus. You keep going north, and there's Tyre and there's Sidon up there. And they're very close to Syria. Like, it's up there in Syria's territory. But it's still a part of God's territory, people. And so the king of the north takes that, Sidon. And that was like the entry into controlling Palestine. That's the significance of this.
So that is the fortified city they're talking about.
That is what most people believe that is the fortified city, is Sidon. So I have Sidon written there by fortified city. And so Antiochus III takes this fortified city of Sidon, and within a few years of taking this, the reason why I said that this was the end, like the catalyst to bring about the entire area of Palestine. The Seleucids gained, and there was another battle. It was called the Battle of, and it's been referenced a couple different ways. I've seen it two ways. The Battle of Panium, Panium, or the Battle of Ion. So Panium or Panion. But it occurred in 200 BC. That's when officially the Seleucids gained control of Israel's territories. All right. Okay. Let's move on. Okay. That's basically what verse 16 talks about. He who comes against him shall do according to his own will, meaning Antiochus III is going to do whatever he wants. No one's going to be able to stand against him, and he's going to stand in the glorious land. He's going to control God's territory there. Israel, Palestine, where Jerusalem, where the Israelites are, where the Jewish people are supposed to be, Canaan land. Antiochus III is going to stand in the glorious land with destruction in his power. Okay. Right? I mean, that's what it says. That's what that means. Okay. Now, verse 17. Okay. If you'll see on your chart, there is in a lighter blue, on my computer screen it was a much lighter blue. I'm sorry if you can't tell the difference there, but these women, Laodicea and this woman, Cleopatra the First, are in a lighter blue. And under her is the reference Daniel 11:17. I have an asterisk by her name.
Oh.
Cleopatra?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. She was the daughter of Antiochus III. And she began the long line of the Cleopatras. You all are probably familiar with all the movies that have been made about the most famous Cleopatra, and she was Cleopatra number 7. So there were 7 of them. The one that we're familiar with in the movies, with that dealt with Rome and Julius Caesar and all that, was Cleopatra the 7th. And so that's why I have the asterisk there, because I have a little footnote at the very bottom of the handout that says that 7 Cleopatras in this Ptolemaic history, and Cleopatra the 7th is the last Cleopatra before Egypt was taken by Rome. Okay, but here's Cleopatra the First, who started it all. Started the Cleopatra dynasties, I guess. Cleopatra dynasty. But she is referenced here in Daniel 11:17. Because as you can tell from your chart, there's going to be another intermarriage. There's going to be an agreement made. There's going to be a ruse here that's put forward. So verse 17 explains it. This is Antiochus III still, shall also set his face to enter with strength with the strength of his whole kingdom. Shall give him before him. Him's in the herd. Okay. Third is the he. Is going. Okay, good. His daughter, Egypt, to dispatch the first. He's gonna. Antiochus the third is gonna try to infiltrate Egypt by giving his daughter Cleopatra the first to Ptolemy the fifth. But verse 17 says, but she's not going to stand with him, meaning her father, or be on the side of her father. She is going to marry Ptolemy the fifth and then take his side.
She likes him.
Yeah, she's not so after
you
this
go.
Cleopatra the first. But now she oh, we're so out of time already, you guys.
Yeah.
This will not be part. This will be the third, and then there will be a fourth.
That's okay.
I didn't think it would take this long.
It's good.
So this would just do an injustice, I think, to the text.
Cleopatra's a good spot
Good
to
place
stop.
to
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let all this soak
This,
in.
yeah, I was gonna say, this is a good time to go home if you have time and just kind of, okay, look these back up,
Yeah.
you know, and just kind of put the drama all together and, you know, play it out like a movie in your head, you know, with the characters. Yes, that's right.
They did
Okay.
pick out the best actress to play Cleopatra when they
Did they? Yeah.
Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I heard. Yeah. Yeah, very good. Okay, so I'm gonna draw a line.
Yes.
Thank you. Good.
Wonderful.
Thank you for
Wonderful.
making that. So I just
Yes.
happy to share. Now,
Because I don't have the smarts on my own to figure all that out.
Griffin can do it.
I don't even have
Oh, I
to
can't.
but I'm gonna figure it out.
I do want to, since we've been in Daniel and we're talking about these, I do want to put a plug in for my husband's class. For those of you who don't normally attend at Farmersville. It is not going to be here. You can just talk about the prophets and all the visions of Israel and etc. And so this is the title of all the classes. And if you want to have one of those, pass that along. But it's going to be a very good informational, deep dive study, more than he can do on a Sunday morning here, into these topics. This idea of, you know, visiting the prophets and what were they meaning? What did they mean when they were talking about Jerusalem and Israel and etc. The Jews. Okay, so I just wanted to put a plug in for that because it is going to go. It goes along with what we're talking about here. It really does. Of the chart that if you take this one, it's just one sheet, and so those 4 charts are on this one sheet. And if you just slice it right down the middle line there, you'll have 2 parts that hook together. So this end hooks up to this end, and it's just all the same information. It's just really tiny.
I think I have 100 copies of these everywhere in Colorado.
Yeah.
And I think that's all I have. Okay, we're gonna call it. Calling it. Okay. Thank you very much for being here. I love seeing every one of you every time we're assembled
Thank
together.
you. This is
I
great.
don't have my, let's see. Does anybody know who it is? I didn't even bother to let anybody to remind the
So-
person.
Daniel was having a vision.
Yeah, so he
He didn't understand it either, so.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
saying, I think that's why he just kept saying, "Oh, they never think this
No.
because
Yeah, he's not, I don't know if he's seeing it or that this angelic creature is just telling him this information. And Daniel's recording it.
Right, but it hadn't happened yet.
No.
So that's why it says King of the North, King of the South,
Yes.
because
Oh,
they
yeah,
didn't have names.
No, yes,
In
that's
his
exactly
visions.
right. That's exactly right. It couldn't be named, even became king, right, in Isaiah. So God could have supplied the names, could have if he wanted to, but he didn't. He chose not to. But he did choose to reveal Cyrus's name back before.
Must have been
you know,
something
over-
important about that.
Veronica to dig real deep and let us know.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, but no, that's a good observation. Good. I was trying to find the paper where I wrote about the prayers.
Yeah, I thought.
Oh, here. Julia, but she's not here. Rebecca,
Okay.
are you okay?
I knew it was coming.
Okay. Now, next time, Penny.
I'm over here next week.
Oh, okay, then Connie.
Okay.
Okay, very good. And then after Connie, oh, hold on. Just so you know, where is it? Oh,
I won't be here that second week in March.
I lost it. Where did I just have it? Oh, brother. I don't know. I just had it here. Doesn't matter. I'll let you know.
We'll get it next
Who's left?
week.
I don't even know who's left. I'll find it. It's in there. I just had it. Anyway, so Rebecca, and then Connie, and then there's somebody else. I can't remember who it is.
Okay.
Okay.
These ladies, I do pray for forgiveness of sins that we have. Please give us all traveling mercies as we go back to our places of residence. And bless us and